This video covers section 9.7, functions involving radicals, objective 1, evaluate functions involving radicals. We have two different functions here. One's the square rooting function and one's the cube rooting function. F of 3 is calling for the square rooting function. It says to take its inputs, multiply by 3, and add 7. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 7 is 16, and the square root of 16 is 4. Letter B calls on that same exact function, says to take its input, 7, and multiply by 3 and add 7. That's 21 plus 7, which is 28. And 4 times 7 is 28, giving us 2 square root of 7. Now letter C calls for the G function, which is the cube root, but it says first multiply your input by 2. Our input's -4 times 2, and then add 7. So that's -8 plus 7, which is the cube root of -1. And the cube root of -1 is -1 because -1 times -1 times -1 is -1. Remember, you can have negatives underneath cube roots, but not under square roots. And the G function, G of 10, says to take its inputs, multiply by 2, add 7, and take the cube root of that. That's the cube root of 20 plus 7, which is 27, and the cube root of 27 is 3. And this leads us to your practice problems. I encourage you to press pause on your video and work these out, and come back and when you're ready to see the solution. Now that you've had a chance to work these out, I'll work these out with you. F of x says to take its input and add 2. Our input is 7. We add 2 to that, and the square root of that is 3. F of 10, take the input of 10, add 2, and take the square root of that. That's the square root of 12. 12 is 4 times 3, so that's 2 square root of 3. G of -3. We take the cube root of, the input gets multiplied by 3, and add 1. So that's the cube root of -9 plus 1, which is the cube root of -8. Cube root of -8 is -2 because -2 cubed is -8. And the last one, letter D, F at -3. If the input's -3, we're supposed to add 2 to that. This is the square rooting function this time because it's F. So that's the square root of -1, which is not real or undefined. We can't have negatives underneath our square roots. And this concludes the video for section 9.7, functions involving radicals. Objective 1, evaluate functions involving radicals.